Welcome to VESPA Voices. This is Nadine. On this episode, we are going to explore Ventura Unified School District's Transportation Department. We are going to learn what it takes to get many of our students to school and back, and to a whole host of places. It takes so much more than you think. I've asked John Gustafson and Sarah Brown to give us a little background on the Transportation Department. I'm going to ask them about their specific jobs a little later. Here's my lightning round of questions. How many employees work in the Transportation Department?
So we've got 55 currently and 5 more in the waiting room. So they're coming in hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
How many buses?
We have 63 buses, 31 of the small buses, and 30 of the long, big transits, and we have 2 electric.
We also have a fleet of vans out there. So we've got 4 vans that are electric, and then we've got 3 gasoline-powered vans. And that doesn't include the trucks that we take on from warehouse, because we also do the warehouse fleet for service and maintenance.
Who do these vans serve?
The vans are used, the electrics are currently being used to pick up students for home to school. There's some cases with special needs students where they're only allowed to be on one vehicle and you can't have other students with them. There's some cases where it doesn't fit to put these kids on another route. So we'll have drivers go out and pick up those kids. And then the gasoline ones, we use those on field trips. So if a coach wants to go to, say, Mammoth with the track team, which happens every summer, we end up sending them in those rather than sending a 40-foot school bus and having to pay a driver the entire time.
So how many students are transported each day?
So each day we've got around 3,000 students that are riding our buses to and from school.
How many trips is that?
Yeah, so in terms of trips, I believe what you mean is routes. Yes. So yeah, a trip would be somewhere like Magic Mountain. A route would be daily routine that the drivers do. So currently we've got 47 routes total. 15 routes are regular ed and 32 routes are special ed. Perfect.
And then generally, how many field trips average?
That number varies, especially from month to month. I can't give you it depends on if they're sport trips or, because if you're in the swing of sports, then they're going all over the place constantly. But after the sports die down, then the field trips change. So on average, though, like last year, we got 2,800 roughly, 2,888 trips last year.
Okay, let's go through scheduling. Walk me through the logistics of scheduling.
When you're saying scheduling, I'm pretty sure what you're meaning is setting up a route.
Yes.
So when you're setting up a route, we're at the mercy of the sites, essentially, for when they choose to start school and when they choose to let the kids out. Once we know when all the schools are letting out, we start piecing together routes to try to keep the kids on the bus the least amount of time possible. It doesn't always work out that way, though, because we are limited on how many drivers we have. And there again, we're at the mercy of the bell schedule. So what'll happen is they'll make a route and they can see it on the GPS. So they place down positions. And at each position, it'll allocate how many children are going to go to what school at that position. Once you've got the bus loaded, essentially, with as many kids as it can take, you end up turning around and sending the bus to school, doing a drop-off, and then that driver's clear to do the next route. So sometimes you've got a school in the morning that'll do an elementary school, and then once the elementary school's dropped off, they go and pick up a high school or a middle school. It depends on which route and what times we're dealing with. And there again, we're at the mercy of that bell schedule.
Okay, so most of the scheduling for the routes happens before the school year begins, right? parents sign up for transportation? What's the criteria? How are students eligible for bus services?
Well, yes, they go on our website and they will do the application. And then we also have the bus card application. And then once that's done, then we will look and see if they're eligible. And the eligibility is for high school. They have to be 3 miles or more away from the school. Middle school would be 2 miles, and elementary 4th and 5th would be 1 mile. And then for the other grades down to kindergarten would be 0.5 mile. So if they meet all that criteria, and then the key part is that they have to go to their home school. So some kids have a school of choice so that we don't transport them. And that's pretty much how it works.
Okay. Is it all filled out with hard copy paper, or is it online now?
Everything is online now. We have an app that we use. The whole program is called Traversa. And so they sign up online through us, and then we put them through that program.
Is this an app where parents can track their students getting to and from school?
Yes, that's linked in there with that. So Traversa is the program, and then an app is called My Ride K through 12. And so the parents put their email in, we link them up, and then they can see when the bus is arriving. Their students will have a card so they can scan on and off the bus, so they'll know that their student made it on the bus and off the bus. They can track the bus. Yeah, it's a pretty great program.
Sounds like it. And now we are going to learn all about dispatch. Located at the Crooked Palm site, the dispatchers are key to running a safe and organized operation. Tell me your name and what do you do in transportation?
My name is Nancy Zuniga, and I am the dispatcher at Ventura Unified. I've been here since 2014, and I communicate with the drivers, with parents, with students, with schools in regards to transportation.
And tell me your name and what you also do.
My name is Michael Hellen. I'm also a dispatcher. I just started this school year dispatching. I've been a bus driver just for 2 years now. And like Nancy said, I'm just here routing the kids, answering the telephones, and helping drivers with the routes.
So walk me through when you come into the office, what are you doing? What are you looking for?
We look to cover routes that need to be covered. If a driver calls out, make sure that all the drivers check in to make sure they're here. Take any voicemails for any students that are not attending, and calling the drivers and letting them know that they're not coming. They don't have to go by that house, making sure that everybody is here.
What time does your workday begin?
6 o'clock. I normally come in. I check the voicemails, check emails, see if anybody has called out sick, see if any routes need to be covered right away, and any kids aren't going to be riding that day. We notify the drivers they don't have to go by the house and pick up the kids.
So what happens if there's an obstacle at 6 a.m.? What are you doing?
We're on the radio, we're on the phone, and running to the mechanic shop. It takes a whole team here, and as long as Johnny's here, we're good.
Anything else you want to add about dispatch?
It's fun. It's nice to hear everybody when they come. I enjoy it.
Are you listening to chatter on the radio as well as looking on big screens and looking at flashing lights?
I'm looking at where they are, who's running late and who's on time.
Mike, anything you want to add?
Like Nancy said, it's fun to just hear everybody's voice saying good morning, and we're all checking in. The team's all here and just being a part of it. The radio chatter, everybody's pretty professional, but yeah, we could see on the who's driving what bus on the computer. It's pretty funny. It's like a little game.
What's the most challenging part of the job?
The most challenging part, when you get stuck and you just can't figure out something, and so that's challenging. Not knowing what to do, not knowing what to expect sometimes, but that's why we have a pretty supporting team here with us.
And what's the most rewarding part of the job for you?
That everything gets done on time.
Well, I've noticed your priority shifts within just a second. You'll have a list in your head oh, they called and this needs to be attended to, or Different priorities can just shift really quick. You'll get a phone call and something is really dramatic, and not having that energy, you put that energy back in it. Like, it's not falling apart. Okay, just realign your priorities.
It sounds like it requires a lot of agility.
Yeah.
And what's the most rewarding for you?
When it all works out, when everything just clicks, everything's on time, everything works, and then the storm settles down, everybody's at school, everybody's safe, and yeah, you helped put that together. Yeah, it's cool.
Perfect. Thank you so much. What does it take to be a bus driver? Well, let's find out. Okay, tell me your name and what is your position here?
My name is Sarah Brown, and I am the Safety and Training Specialist. I'm a state certified instructor.
How long have you been with the district?
6.5 years.
So take us through some of the training. What happens?
Well, when it comes to training, there are different types of training that drivers receive. In order to drive a school bus, a driver must successfully complete a minimum of 20 hours of classroom training and a minimum of 20 hours behind the wheel, but I guarantee you it will be more than that. I make sure of that. How long that takes is up to my schedule, which sometimes I have to drive a bus or ride along with other people, help with dispatch. And then their learning ability will depend on how long we're going to take on that. Typically takes about 3 to 5 months to complete everything start to finish, which would be fingerprinting here at the district and fingerprinting at the CHP, DMV tests, first aid. We can do that with your certificate at the CHP, or we teach first aid here, which I do that. And we do that every 2 years. So you have to have that. The classroom training, the written test at a CHP, and then behind the wheel training, that is a minimum of 20 hours as well, but will definitely be more than that. And that is also depending on their level of skills, how fast they can get through all of those skill sets. And then they have to pass the CHP driving test. So now they become a bus driver, right? So once they receive their certificate, they're required to receive a minimum of 10 hours of a combination or one of the other of 10 hours of classroom or in-service or behind-the-wheel training per training period, which is a year, birthday to birthday, for 5 training periods. Then the driver will renew, which entails a minimum of 10 hours of classroom. It's mandatory. So through all the different years, they have 10 hours of a mixture, but on the last, their 5th training period, they have to have 10 hours classroom. And then I will go out with them in the bus and make sure they can pass the driving test with the CHP again.
I have some follow-up questions. So interesting. Do the drivers get paid while they're in training?
Well, yes. So the drivers that are already established, we set up the meetings after their morning routes. So then they come and they get paid for that. When a brand new driver who is in that training, they get paid once they get their certificate.
And then all this training, is it happening here within the district?
Yes, that's correct. So I am the state certified instructor, so I do that here, either at this facility or the ESC, and then around town when we're doing behind the wheel. Sometimes I do have some guests that come to this facility as well.
Do you have enough drivers?
At the moment, I am so excited to be able to say yes, and we're getting more. There's some more on the way. We will be able to make more routes, and we actually have cover drivers that could cover a route if there were to be an incident or someone to call out. Once upon a time, we were all driving. The office staff was driving.
And how do you retain drivers?
Support them and be present. And Ventura Unified School District is offering really good benefits right now. And the 8-hour positions has definitely been the best incentive to keep people here.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Tell me your name and what do you do for transportation?
My name's John Gustafson. Most people call me Johnny. I'm a mechanic 2 here at Ventura Unified School District. I work in the shop with 2 other mechanics. I've got a lead mechanic named Brad and another mechanic named Danny. Together, we make sure that these buses are inspected every 45 days, 3,000 miles, and make sure that they're, safe for the kids to go on, because it's a classroom on wheels. Any one of these buses could have 60 students on the freeway at 55 miles per hour. We got to make sure those tires are going to stay on.
What time does your day begin?
My day is supposed to begin at 6. Typically, I get here a little early. The gates open about 5:45, just so that way I can scroll around and make sure that everything's going the way it's supposed to. If they've got an emergency, because some of the buses come in a little earlier than that, I'm ready to jump in the truck and head down to ESC to take care of it, or Satakoy, whichever the problem is.
All right, can we discuss the secret, undisclosed location of the Crooked Palm location?
The 4213 Crooked Palm location off the 33? No, that's a secret, trade secret. Yeah.
So tell me what is special about the Crooked Palm location.
The Crooked Palm location, we actually have the shop, naturally, where we work. So the special part of this is having the ability to maintain the vehicles on the premises and having dispatch in the same location as well as our director. So if there's any questions or anything, we can get them answered as quickly as possible. It's a centralized location. ESC is where we keep the buses, the majority of our buses, and a lot of the drivers, of course, driving out of ESC. They've got the annex in the parking lot, which is where we keep the keys. And then you've got Satakoy. And Satakoy is a very small location for the buses. We fit about 7 out there right now, I believe, which is pretty tight. But the plan for that location is that's where the electric fleet is going to be charging and running out of. So things are always changing here. We used to have Cabrillo too, back, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago or so. And we used to run buses out of there. So we actually had 3 sites and then a separate shop. So I believe we moved into this building in 2017 where everybody came together. Because I don't know if you remember this or not, but dispatch used to be upstairs at ESC.
No. Little history lesson. Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask you, what is the most challenging part of your job?
Probably dealing with breakdowns. It doesn't happen very often, thankfully, but it does happen. You lose a radiator hose or something, or an EGR system. A lot of the problems are due to the smog equipment on the buses. So your EGR coolers let go without warning on the internationals, and they power down, and you never know where they're going to be. So sometimes you're lucky and it's on a dead-end street or something, and other times it's on the side of the freeway, in which case we have to deal with that to get the kids off the bus as safely as possible and transferred as quickly as possible so they're not in any danger. So I would say that's probably one of the most difficult things to deal with. Also, dealing with electrical problems and stuff on these buses from a mechanic's point of view. Little things that go south every once in a while take time to diagnose, and naturally they don't act up when the mechanic's watching. It only happens to the driver, and that could be said for anybody who's got a car, but that's just the way of it, and those things take time. So yeah, those are a couple of the things.
And what's the most rewarding part of your job?
Honestly, dealing with the drivers. I enjoy supporting and making sure that these drivers are taken care of the best I can. A couple years back, my father actually had a heart attack. And when that happened and I was in the hospital with him, I got overwhelming support from the drivers. They were calling me, making sure I was okay, offering any assistance that they could. It was really nice to know that this place is that tight-knit. So the support that I get from the drivers is definitely the most rewarding.
I love that story. Thank you very much. John's story about this tight-knit and caring group of people is a perfect way to introduce some of the drivers that transport our kids to and from school and various other places, whether for sports, field trips, or special programs. And now that we've learned what kind of extensive training is involved to become a driver, I wanted to talk to some of the drivers. You are going to hear from Noelle, Alexandria, and Rebeca. Tell me your name.
Noelle Urias.
And how long have you been driving with the district?
I've been here 2 months, well, almost 2 months, but I've been a driver for 8 years. I started at Durham School Services, and they taught me everything I know. And I just came over here in the last 2 months because they were offering better benefits. So here I am.
Great. What is the most challenging aspect of the job?
For me, I've never driven special needs students. I mean, I've had them for summer school, but I've never had them for a whole year. And the students I have this year, they've already graduated. And then I like all my kids. I love my kids. I like to get to know them. That's the best part of it.
So is that the most rewarding part of the job?
That is the most rewarding part of the job. Yes, I would say so. Getting to know them.
What has this job taught you?
Patience. I'm not, like I said, I'm not used to some of the special needs students, and sometimes it's a bad day or there's been a change in their routine, and then they don't want to get off the bus for whatever reason, or they're hanging out and then it changes my schedule. So some of that stuff, I mean, it's interesting. I just roll with it.
Thank you so much. Tell me your name.
Alexandria, Montano.
How long have you been driving?
A little over a year and a half now.
What do you find is the most challenging aspect of the job?
I think sometimes the most challenging part can be, right now I do special needs. So for me personally, sometimes the most challenging thing can be when they're nonverbal and the students, they don't talk to you and they don't communicate with you. That can be difficult because if they're, seemingly upset or not happy, it's a little hard to rectify that. And we don't know what their diagnoses are. So it makes it a little difficult to try to help them because you want to, you want them to feel better or you want them to not cry or things like that. But depending on how things go and they're nonverbal, it makes it a little bit more difficult to help them, basically, I guess is the short way to put it.
Do you get training on some strategies to help with the students?
Yes, as well as, thank goodness, we have a lot of drivers, senior drivers, veteran drivers that have been here a long time, so we're able to go to them. Everybody's really helpful. Everybody's really communicative. Everybody's really on board to help you in any way that you need help. So us drivers that are not as seasoned or experienced, we can go to those that are, and they give us tips and tricks and things they've learned along the way. And so those things are really helpful.
So what do you find the most rewarding about the job?
The most rewarding thing I think would be over the time that you have them, you can see that they have learned things or their skills are getting better and sharper, and school is getting easier for them and they're learning a lot more, and they can, things that you knew they couldn't do in the beginning of the year. Some of my kids are little, so tying shoes is one thing. Maybe they didn't know how to tie shoes in the beginning, but towards the end of the year, they run up to you and they can, look, I did it, and they can show you. Or some of the little kids that I have too, they'll, when they run up to you with their little arms all the way out and they give you a big, huge hug and they're excited to see you. Those are some of the things. There's plenty more, but that make it worthwhile every day.
Great answer. What has this job taught you?
Patience, for sure. I think it's important to have a good deal of patience. Going back to some of the other things I mentioned as well, you don't know where they're coming from or what they need sometimes, and we only see them for such a short amount of time. Try to have patience because they could have maybe not had, the best morning or something like that, or vice versa. When they get on the bus from the end of the day, maybe they didn't have a great day or whatever. Hopefully having patience with them and understanding that it may have been a little rough for them if they are sad or upset or something like that. Because you are the last thing they see before they go to school, and then you're also the last thing that they see for school when they go home at the end of the day as well. So I think patience would be the biggest one so far.
Perfect. Thanks. Tell me your name.
Rebeca Castro.
How long have you been driving with the district?
18 years.
So what do you find the most challenging aspect of the job?
Okay, at the beginning for my language, because my first language is Spanish, and at the beginning it was horrible, just yes and bye and good morning.
So what do you find the most rewarding about the job?
My love for the special kids. I was driving for them by 15 years, and it was amazing to see how they grow up. This example is for a 7-year-old student, and he wasn't able to get in for the stairs. So I was teaching him, and in less than 2 or 3 months, he did by himself, and he learned how to buckle, and also as him, many other students with Down syndrome. It's amazing to see when you are teaching them in just a few minutes, because they ride with us like a half hour maybe. And when you try to communicate with them, sometimes they are unable to talk, and they start saying your name, and it's amazing, those things. I also learn sign language and everything because I love the students. And it's amazing to see how they grow up.
Perfect. That is great. So you are a veteran driver. What would you tell newer drivers? What kind of advice do you have?
First of all, love for the students. We need to understand the capacities, sometimes the behaviors. If not just for the regular ed, which is a challenge to understand teenagers at this time, but we need to learn the way as you communicate with the teenagers. Many of them we need to be strict, and many of them we need to use a soft voice. And the challenge is to gain the respect. And as I tell them, my dear, is for a safety reason, and at the end they understand everything is for them, good for them. And the other thing that I totally recommend to the new bus drivers, the passions and love for the special ed students, also for the special ed, for the parents, for that kind of students, because it's no easy life for them. And we need to understand when they are grumpy, or we need to really understand the context, and it's important to come right here. Even we have problems out there, we need to bring with a positive attitude and love for them, for everyone.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I wish I could have talked to every single person working in the Transportation Department. They're a dedicated and professional group of people. I hope we've provided a good sense of this amazing department, of what they do, and what is involved to get many of our students to school and back home safely, and to destinations beyond. I want to thank everyone who was gracious with their time and quite brave to talk with me, the one holding a microphone and clipboard. I really appreciated getting to meet them and learn about what they do. And thank you for listening.